Hey guys, it's Erik Everhard, professional porn star, author, and men's coach. And you're watching John the Ninja, the greatest show in the known universe. Check it out.
Ladies and gentlemen, how you doing? It's John the Ninja live in the dojo, aka the Dojing, aka the John the Ninja Studios. And you know this, man, but I always say that. But more importantly, I have a gentleman here who has quite the resume. I don't care who you are, it's very impressive. And now the person I'm with right now has stated, I'm one of those people that if I want to do it, I want to do it the best. I could sympathize with that. Now, this person has most definitely done this in their field. The person I'm speaking of is Mitch Hartwell. Or, well, to be honest, you know him as the world famous porn star Erik Everhard. Erik has a career spanning over 2 decades, having worked with the most elite in the world of pornography. He got a start around 1998, 99, after living in Canada and working part-time at a massage therapy school. Having dropped out of college, he saw an ad in the paper. He said, you know what, let me go for this. Called them up, they hung up on him. Well, that'd be disheartening to me, but he kept on pushing. And then 7 to 8 months later, I'm sorry, I'm not good with my numbers, people. You know I'm bad at math. He saw the same ad again. He said, well, what the F? Or what the fuck, we'll be blatant with it. And called them up again. And then it turns out when he showed up just to do some pictures, they asked him to have sex with a female right then and there. Well, being the charismatic individual he was, he did it. He did a great job and then started to pursue the career. And then in 1998, 99, he moved to LA and really went to go to the stars, having worked with such great. I don't care who you think you are or what you say. These companies made money, so they're great companies. Vivid. We got to go with Digital Playground. We got to go with Evil Angel and Jules Jordan. He's worked with not only the best companies, but some of the most world-renowned starlets you've ever heard of in the world of pornography. Jessie Jane, Riley Steele, Taylor Patrick, and the list goes on and on and on. And after winning so many numerous awards, such as the Male Talent of the Year, Best Oral Scene of the Year, Best Group Scene of the Year, so many, it's really numerous. You really can't count them all, especially with the different, companies and etc. After sleeping with over 4,000 women, he wanted to do more. So he started a program in 2014 studying neurolinguistics and then started dealing with medications such as ayahuasca and said, you know what, I want to do more with my life. So after coming to this epiphany, he pretty much picked up his bags, moved to Czech Republic, and then started self-help classes, started coaching men in their sexuality to help them better in the bedroom. So after doing all this, he wrote this amazing book, Unleash Your Sexual Superpowers. And now he's not only a coach and a porn star, but also an author. And I want to talk to him about his book. So ladies and gentlemen, Erik Everhard, sir, how you doing in the Czech Republic?
Good, man. Good. It's a beautiful day out here, just getting my day going and having a conversation with you this morning. So it's a good day.
Man, it is a fabulous day. It's 6 a.m. out here, but this is normal business hours for me. Up at 6 a.m. in bed around 12. So, sir, first things first, I just thought it mind-boggling that you moved to the Czech Republic. You're chilling out there. You're doing all this hard work. I had two questions. Number one, do you speak Czech? Was that a totally different situation for you? Because I feel like it was much different than when you moved from Canada to LA. At least everyone spoke English. And then number two, what was your vision? Because I know you really came to that idea like, hey, I have to get over here through one of your ayahuasca trips. So that was my first question. I'm like, what really led you to go to Czech? Because you always said like Europe's beautiful, the women are beautiful. It's just a different animal altogether.
Yeah. Interesting. So, do I speak Czech? No, I don't. I do speak some really rudimentary Russian because I've been learning Russian while I've been over here a little bit. So I can get by in Russian like okay. But yeah, no, there's no Czech.
Okay.
Um, but as to your question with the ayahuasca journey, actually it revolved around an ex-girlfriend of mine who was Hungarian.
Hmm.
So that was the main impetus for me moving over here. It had to do a lot of stuff with relationships, a lot of stuff with things that I had done that I sort of regret in my past, and it went into some deep areas like that. So that was the impetus, and then moved over here. Things didn't work out with that lady, and I used to produce a lot of movies in Czech Republic, so I knew the lay of the land, and I had done some other kind of spiritual work around astrocartography and family constellation work. If you've ever seen any of that, the Bert Hellinger style family constellation stuff. And everything was pointing to this area, and everything said, well, Prague would be at least a good city energetically. And LA had been a good city for me energetically. I think that was another reason why things just took off for me there. So, yeah, so that's what led me to being here. And yeah, I've been here now, gosh, almost going on 6 years. And now the plan is to move further east eventually. So
What
that's next
location?
up.
What locations were you hoping to go further east?
Oh, Kiev.
Oh, that's a beautiful city.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm half Ukrainian, right? There's so many Ukrainians in Canada, so
How close are you to your English ancestry? Your dad's English, your mom's Ukrainian, correct?
yeah, not really close to the English, even though, and this was funny because my grandfather is directly from England. So he was not born in Canada. He was actually born in the UK.
Okay.
And the UK is the one country that you cannot get a passport if your grandfather is from there.
Yikes.
Every other European country, if your grandfather's from there, it's like boom, passport, easy. UK, no. I'd have to go. It would be an arduous process for me to get a UK passport, so I don't think it's worth it.
But they do dual citizenship, correct?
Yes, but you would have to go over there, and I think you'd have to live and work in the UK for 5 years before they would consider even giving it to you.
Yes, that's a commitment. So
Yeah.
how different was it moving to the Czech than it was to LA? For a lot of people that aren't aware, one of your best friends, Jeff, your mentor, the guy who really groomed you, he was the reason you were able to get to LA. So, real quick story for everyone. When he was coming up at the first place in Canada, when he was doing porn initially, Jeff was the man about time, the Wolf of Wall Street for the gym he was working at. But he was a self-made man, had the Rolls Royce, the Lexus, everything, and he saw something in Erik, and even named Erik. What was the difference between him having you show up in LA and going, "Here's 300, you're on your way," versus, "Okay, you're established and now you're in Czech Republic"? What were the bigger differences? Sorry.
I think the biggest difference was mindset. Like going to Los Angeles, I just turned 22 years old. I had no concept about anything. I was very naive about the world because, when you live in Canada, you live in this little bubble where everybody treats you really nice, which is not when you step outside in the real world, right? It's not that way. Um, so I would have to say it was really a mindset shift. It was more difficult for me to move to Los Angeles than for me to move to Czech Republic.
Mm.
Definitely. Because by the time I came here, I already had a good degree of street smarts. I knew what I was capable of. I had belief in myself. I knew fundamentally I was going to be okay. And I think, LA is one of those cities. I'm sure there's other ones too. I would reckon New York, Moscow, um, Dubai. I mean, we could go through the list of like big metropolitan cities where you could argue, well, if I can make it here, I can make it anywhere
Mm.
because they are tough, chew you up, spit you out kind of cities.
So, my condolences for Jeff. I know he passed away, and I was curious, what about him really said, "You know what? This is my guy. This is my mentor." I have a mentor, and continually, I would say about 2 years worth of him just every week, "Hey, man, you coming in? Hey, man, you coming in? Hey, man, you coming in? Hey, man, you coming in?" And then would put me to work in my craft, whether it was the radio, recording, working on the boards at the radio station. So what about Jeff really was like, "You know what? This is the guy who's going to get me there. This is the guy I really have a connection with." And I am curious, how did he pass away?
So my understanding was, well, I've heard some different things, so I'm not entirely sure. I'm not sure if it was an overdose or if it was self-inflicted. So I'm not entirely sure. The people that I spoke to back there haven't fully discussed it. Um, but when it comes to the mentorship, it was really him picking me,
Hmm.
which was interesting. Because um, I was I didn't even know I was looking for somebody at the time, which obviously I was because now I'm always actively looking, right? But He just showed me it was my first real taste of entrepreneurship because I'd never met somebody who was, quote unquote, a self-made person. Now, we can take the moralistics out of it, push those aside. I mean, he was self-made and he was sharp as a tack when it came to a business mind. And coming from a family that was just blue collar, right? Which mine was, where it's like, well, you go to work, put in your 9 to 5, come home, have dinner, go to sleep, rinse, repeat for life.
Mhm.
And that was never the way that my brain was thinking. So uh, he saw something in me because he definitely gravitated to me and was like, okay, I see something in you. If you are willing to come with me on this journey, I will take you by the hand and I'll take you. And that's what he did. He really like it was very much like an older brother. That's the way I could describe it because at the time I think he was probably 28, 29, and I was 22.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So now we go to the first time you ever had sex on set. Again, I already mentioned the story, and it was a funny way you put it. It's like, hey, you know what? This would be a great story to tell my grandkids. I'll be the old guy, at the nursing home, like, hey, guess what I did? And having worked with so many people in the medical field and having worked at the 3 jobs I've had, you're right. You never know who you meet. I've met international world famous singers that here they're nobody, but overseas there's somebody. So my question was, knowing how exposed people are once they do pornography, did that ever enter your mind? I think it was Charles Dara said that if you do one, you got to do a million because there's no way people aren't going to find out. And then I had a friend, she's a doctor in sexology. She had a question about what were your experiences prior to pornography and what did you bring in sexually? What were your ideas of sex that stuck with you once you entered it?
Here's the interesting thing, and it was something that we went into when I was going through neurolinguistic programming college, um, and I believe it's the prefrontal cortex or the frontal lobe of your brain that in men is not fully developed until at least about 27 years old. And it's the part of your brain that can understand consequences. And there's a theory behind why, if you look at the population of men that are in prison, they're all under 30. Well, we can look at testosterone as being part of that equation, heightened testosterone, but also that fact that it is, you just fundamentally cannot comprehend that there are real consequences to your actions. Like, if you ask me, would I have gone through all that I did at my age at 44? Hell no. I'd be like, wow, that's too risky. What am I doing? Right. But you're 21, you're like, oh, it's all going to be okay. So I think that is a big part of it. I think, you can wax poetic about the risks versus the rewards to people over and over. If they are a certain age or younger, it will go in one ear and out the other. And that's just how it is.
Okay. And
That's been my experience.
And then the second, your ideas on sex prior to, because you weren't, what were you, 17 when you lost your virginity?
Yeah, I mean, God, my views on sex have changed so radically. Um, and it's funny, right? Because you think about, even the list of names that come on a movie, right? You remember the first name, you remember the last, right? It's
Mhm.
like I could tell you who I lost my virginity with. I could tell you who I had sex with last. 5,000 in between. I can't tell you one name, right? and so so I can think back to that time when I lost my virginity. And so many people, if you don't have the requisite experience to put that first experience as a backdrop upon, so many people be like, oh man, it was great. It was this. Like when I did it, I thought it was great. I was like, oh, this is amazing. If you ask me today, I'm like, oh, that was bullshit. Right? On every level. So yeah, I mean, when I entered porn, I had a little resume, but not certainly to the extent that it became. And I learned so much that I don't think I would have been able to learn otherwise. And that's also why I wrote the book, right? Because I realized, there were so many things that I understood because I went through this crazy experiment that just most guys just don't have the um,
Opportunity to.
wherewithal or ability to, right? Because you got to understand it is a really, and I call it an experiment because I mean that's kind of what it is, right? Like it's not normal. No human would want to necessarily go through that because where are you going to expose yourself to where you're having sex with 5,000 people without a condom and not ending up, dead on some street corner or some problem, like if you could even achieve that, right? Because I look at there's only certain categories, at least that I've found in my brain, where you could achieve that, right? So um, you're Brad Pitt, you're Leonardo DiCaprio, you have that level of fame and status that everybody wants to fuck you. Okay, well, you're not learning anything. There's no learning there because I've known those girls. Like, man, if you're Leo and you come in 30 seconds, she is happy as a clam because she's like, hey, got that on my bedpost, right? She doesn't care. Like your performance. So first off, she's never going to tell you that you're doing a bad performance. She's not going to critique your performance. She's just happy. Bedpost. I can tell my girlfriends I fucked DiCaprio. Boom. Then you got number two, right? Where you're talking about like I've known super, super wealthy guys and they just hire escorts all the time, right? So it's like I've known guys that have racked up 3,000, 4,000 women because they're, multi millionaire or billionaire and they can just pay, right? Again, now you're still not learning anything because from a professional standpoint, because I know a lot of escorts, their job is to tell you you are amazing. So you could do the worst job ever. Oh, that was the best thing ever, right? So again, there's no learning. And then there's where I was at, where it's all learning because it's the only authentically true space I believe you can get into with someone sexually, where because you are both being paid and you're both being paid by a third party, now that person across from you doesn't give a shit about your feelings. Full stop. Like I had girls that, I mean, you can actually go into a scene and you can actually hate each other. Like I've actually worked with someone before where they hate me and I hate them. It's almost like two boxers going into a corner, right? Like an MMA fight. It's like, okay, the director says, okay, action. And then it's like, okay, we're going in, right? And then, you do your thing 5 minutes later, it's like, okay, you still hate each other. So it's like there's a break and you're like, whew, you're in your corners, like red corner, blue corner. and and that's how it goes. But you could be on set and I mean, there's the girls have no problem telling you, hey, I don't like this. Go do this. Do it this way. I want this. But like there's no shame there because you're not walking on eggshells through the lens of I want this person to like me. I want this person to not feel bad that they're not doing a good job. Like all that is just cast aside.
So we're gonna hop into the book, but I did have a quick question. With all the knowledge and experience you've had, what would you consider the most expensive knowledge that you gained that you put in the book or that you just kept for yourself? And when I say expensive knowledge, it's one of those things like, oh my good Lord, I don't want you to go through that to figure out, I went through hell to have this actually become, epiphany knowledge to me. So what was one of those experiences that you put in the book or gone through that you're like, don't ever do this, bro?
Yeah, I would say for me at least, it's definitely been the sexual alignment piece. And that ties into the chapter where I talk about the four pussies. I have been in and stayed in, and this is where I really got this hammered home. I stayed in some relationships for a long time because everything on the checklist was awesome, right? Like, oh, centerfold girl, check. Really smart, check. Oh, funny, good personality, check. But then we got to the sex part. And the lie that everybody sells you, all these, fucking relationship coaches, all these sex, you name it, they all say, well, if you just communicate better. The biggest fucking lie I've ever heard. There's no amount of communication that is ever going to fundamentally alter biology. You and me could communicate all day. I'm not going to be 6'5". Sorry, man. It's not happening. There's no amount of love and attention and communication that is going to make me be able to dunk a basketball. It's not going to happen, right? So when you start understanding that part of the sexual experience, a large part of the sexual experience is that sexual alignment piece. Then you start looking through things through a whole different lens. It puts a layer of complexity onto your relationships as well, though, right? Because it really becomes that Pandora's box sort of phenomenon where it's like, okay, once I do see this, now I can't unsee it.
Mhm.
So there's a benefit and a negative there, because I say, ignorance is bliss. So you either have to figure out, do I want to just stay ignorant? If you want to have the knowledge, then you got to go all the way finding the knowledge, because otherwise you'd be better off just not knowing, and just be happy.
For a lot of religious people, for a lot of people that, sex is so sacred, I always tell people the biggest three things in a relationship are you guys good at managing money? Can you guys live together? Not just like speaking and enjoying the same hobbies, but sharing the same space. And how's the sex? I feel like every time I've seen bad marriages or issues in a relationship, it's one of those three. And I find it curious. What do you do? Say you're a person, even if you're not a Christian or not religious, but you're committed to this person, whether it's through marriage or if it's just, you're a monogamous person and it's really hard to check off the list of the others. Hey, smart, beautiful, and this is what I'm looking for, but the sex is good. How do you deal with that? Or how would you advise someone to deal with that? Because obviously they don't want to pick up and go, but then again, sex is a really big deal.
There's two parts to that, right? You have to look at, there's basically three things how I look at the terms, what I call sexual satisfaction. And so under the first category, we have sexual alignment, right? And that is purely biology. That has nothing to do with anything else. That's just biology. Then we got sexual chemistry. And I look at that as, kind of the energy, the vibration, pheromones, that kind of stuff. That's the sexual chemistry. And then we have sexual compatibility. Do your values in bed align, right? Do you enjoy the same things? Like, you may not have sexual compatibility if you just want to do vanilla sex and your partner wants to dress up like a gimp and whip each other, right? Like, it's, the compatibility is just a little bit off, right? Like,
Right.
so you're like, well, where can we bring it somewhere in the middle where, maybe I don't get whipped, but I wear some leather? I don't know, right? So those are the three pieces. So that's the kind of the lens that I start looking at, okay, how do we figure out if we can have good, enjoyable sex with someone, right? So then you have to find out, well, what column is the issue under? Is it just a compatibility issue, right? Where it's like, okay, maybe we're not into the same things, or maybe it's just they have the what I call raw talent, but they lack the skill sets. Because that's part of the thing that you're looking out with that biological sexual alignment piece. And for me now, when I go into a sexual interaction with a woman, instantly I know, okay, do they have the raw talent or do they not? Because I know what are the biological limitations. I can feel them, so I know, like, okay, what is workable and what's not. But that's also, like I said, that's over 23 years, right? Because, and not to be too graphic with your viewers, but I mean, even if we're just looking at a blowjob, for example, right? Well, if the girl's giving you a blowjob, you're going to come across biological limitations that are going to be vastly different from every girl, that are definitely going to affect your feeling and your enjoyment. And it's going to be individual for everyone, because this is what I talk about with the lock and key theory, right? So, your size, shape, penis is going to be affected by what's her jaw structure, what's her teeth structure, how are they aligned, what's the sharpness, what's the shape, right? What are the lips like? Does she have big lips? Does she have little pencil lips? How wide are the lips? How tall are the lips? Like, how long's the tongue? What's the tongue? Like, all these factors, because you will have, if you line up 10 girls, they're all going to feel very different. And that is just what I'm calling that, the biological part is that raw talent, right? So maybe they have, it'd be like, well, hey, maybe you're 7 feet tall And someone's like, well, you got all the talent in the world to dunk at basketball. Now we just need to teach you how to jump properly, right? So if the girl has the right, raw structure that works for you, then you can say, okay, well, her technique is horrible, but that's workable, right? Technique can be taught to anybody. You could teach somebody how to do something. I can teach you how to shoot a basketball. I can't teach you to be 7 feet tall.
So let's skip a bit. We're going to go past all the great things you've done in the career, a lot of
Mhm.
things you've gone through. I know you had to sue a couple of companies, you've done a lot of directing. Now you're at the pinnacle of your career. Now you've worked with all the stars my generation grew up with, the Jesse James, the Riley Steeles. I think Tara Patrick might have been early 2000s, but who's counting? And you get into neurolinguistics. What about that program have you gravitated to, and what was really peeling back? I know you said you had a lot of fears, you had a lot of doubts, but I think you did it for 3 years. You would go and head to that camp every weekend. And I was wondering, what was the biggest takeaway from it? And could you please explain neurolinguistics to our listeners?
So it was actually a long journey to get there. It started, this was about 2000, I want to say 2009, I think. I took a relationship workshop with this one Bulgarian guy that I'm actually still very good friends with. And at the workshop, people mentioned this thing called NLP. Now, at the time, I was thinking, okay, well, that sounds really good. And they said, well, it's not hypnosis, but it's kind of like that. And I was thinking, oh, okay, well, this could be good for business, for anything, right? Like, if you can kind of like get people to do what you want or manipulate them, like, Um, and then so I said, well, where's the best place? And everybody told me that this school up in Northern California was the best place to go. So I'm a person who, if I'm going to do something, I'm going all in. So I said, okay, that's where I'm going. And it turned out to be absolutely nothing like I thought it would be. So this was the guy that runs it is the sweetest old guy, one of the best NLP practitioners in the world, very holistic. It was a real weird mix of people that would go in there because you had CEOs and then you had yoga instructors, like it was super granola, and like CEOs at the same time. And yeah, I mean, when you're looking at NLP, what you're doing is you're basically looking at um, changing your neurological patterns and what they mean and the meaning of things. So you're using linguistics, you're using language, and you're using neurology to create new thoughts, new beliefs, um, new states in somebody. So when I went there, I oh, I peeled back basically all the things that, not all the things, but a lot of them that were stopping me in life. Um, because you just, you go really deep. Like, what are the wounds that happened to you as a child, right? Like, where did things go wrong? What, and it all comes down to basic. It's so basic stuff that all our problems are based on, right? You know, uh, do we feel loved? Do we feel worthy? Do we feel belong? Right? Belonging. Like these are most of our problems inevitably end up in that bottom rung of like these basic things that happened to us when we were young. And it affects you, your whole life, right? Because it becomes hardwired in you, right? So you always start to see things through that view, right? It's like you can look at it from certain people with money. You'll know people with money that they're the views that they put on money make it so that money never comes to their lives. And then you have other people that have a whole different mindset about money, and money just comes to them, right?
Mhm.
So it's all these different ways of how we interact in the world, and how the meanings that we make of the world and the stories that we have.
I know you got run over by a car very graphically when you were a kid. Was that something you had to really deal with when you were doing this process?
Yeah, what's interesting about the car thing? I'm sure on some really base levels, the car thing definitely fucked me up because I was definitely traumatized from that for a long time. But no, the stuff I would say the stuff that ended up showing up for me in the NLP stuff was actually more self-love stuff. So probably more self-love, more sense of belonging, more sense of worthiness. I had some of that stuff show up in my ayahuasca journeys as well. But so I don't discount the car incident. I think the car incident actually, because now being older, I can tie it all together. I think the car incident actually had to do with me becoming really fat as a child, because I was skinny up until I got run over by the car, and then all hell broke loose.
But you persevered, and then when you got a little older, you started working out, noticed that you could change your body type, and then you played football, etc. So,
Mhm.
man, I always see stories of people on the, I don't want to say the edge or the precipice, but they get to a point where there has to be more, and that's where you got to. Now, you did state that you believe in God or a form of God. Like
Mhm.
one time you got a call that you might have had a positive HIV test, and then you look back, well, I'm a good person, I'm relaxed, but having a base like, okay, there's a God, but there's still got to be more. It seemed that you felt there was more for you to do. So in that weird space, how did ayahuasca help you? Because for me, when I really need to think or my emotions are really expanded, music is my muse. Okay, I can't tell you how dangerous it actually can be because it really wouldn't make sense. But if I'm having a really good day or a bad day and I can't control the emotions, I got to pick up my guitar. I got to pick up my drumsticks. I got to do something musically to create the noise to help me come under control. It's probably not the best way of dealing with it, but that's an example. So what about ayahuasca helped you come to grips like this is what I have to do to find myself and find that okay, this is the job. Because when I listen to these stories you got, man, I'm like, hell no, man. Hell no. I almost shit myself. I'm throwing up in the corner. There's people freaking out, especially the one with the five, was it 5 cups? You drink like
Oh yeah,
3,
God.
4, nothing happened. You're like, well, if this lady's gonna do it, I gotta go for 5. Like, hell no, I'm okay. I'm good. Like, so what was the biggest thing you took away from it? And really, what is it about surrendering to the ayahuasca? I know that's a big thing for addicts or anybody trying to figure it out. Well, why
Yeah.
was it that?
Well, and this has been a process for me ever since I started with it, and I feel like it's getting better. So if we're gonna take it sort of through that God lens, right? There's there's that piece where, and we all sort of hear this, like, oh, you should listen to your intuition, right? I was never very good at that. Yet every time I didn't, because I'm such a heady guy, like I'm very much an analytical person, right? I'm always in my head. Um, And that doesn't serve you when, your gut feeling is telling you, "Hey man, go left." And your brain is like, "Oh man, but we're going right. I mean, on paper, right is such a good plan, right?" So I'd always go right, just totally get burned in the end. Um, so part of the ayahuasca experience for me was getting answers. That was really my main thing behind it, because I like I told you, um, I got to this point where I was like, okay, now I have all these existential questions. What's my purpose in life? What am I here to do? What's it all about? Like these really deeper questions of life. And I wasn't getting any answers. And so I thought to myself, well, if I can't get any answers from myself, maybe I can get it through an external source. So that was what really led me to work with the medicine. Um, and yeah, it was super powerful. I mean, the piece about surrendering, I mean, that was tough. I mean, I mean, definitely a good lesson, but it it's a lesson that, when you can remember it, I think does carry over to everything, because at some point you do have to let go and just say okay. And it really is like saying yes. It's just like, okay, right? Like this is what's, the universe, God, the world, whatever is throwing at me, and you just have to accept it. right? And when you're sitting there in the ayahuasca ceremony, it's almost like a condensed, really, really ramped up version of life, because maybe it's only 6 hours, but to you, there's no, once you're in it, there is no Newtonian time. So I don't know, have I been there 600 years? Have I been there 6 minutes? You're gone at that point as to how long you're under. So to say that it's only 6 hours, it's like, wow, when you're in it, it feels like eternity. But that piece of surrendering does help the whole process in so many ways, because things change when you accept them. And I think, we always hear, in a lot of self-help development and stuff, what you resist persists. And I found that's definitely amplified in a ayahuasca ceremony, right? Because if you're not willing to say yes to it, it's going to keep showing you the shitty images of your life or things that are just traumatizing. And it's just showing them over and over until you suddenly say, okay, yeah, I'll look at this. Okay. And then it's almost like the scariest thing could literally turn into a little teddy bear in 2 seconds, just because now you've accepted it and you're not running from it anymore. So, I think it's sort of a lesson for life. And I think, the more that we can sort of do it when we can, I think is going to be beneficial for all of us.
You're in Czech and you had these notes. You had these notes about, sex, the different things, and they ended up becoming part of your book series. Why did you write them down? Like I was curious because when I go to concerts, that's something I write down. Something good happens, I write it down. Something bad, I relent to do it, but I write it down. And it seems like people that are masters of their field always write down what they've experienced. My jujitsu instructor, brilliant, brilliant martial artist, always has notes. He's always jotting something down he's learned. So, you know, were you consciously writing these notes like, hey, I should remember this? Or it's like, hey, this is, a good idea for next time? Or it's like, hey, I should document this for the future? Because I know you had to revise the book 3 times. So
Mhm.
with these notes, what was the initial start for them? And then when you were revising them, did you have to go back and say, this one really doesn't work? I know you had to change the language up so it would, be English for everyone instead of, the terms used in the porn world. But, that was the general question I had. Like, okay, what was the start of them and how was it molding them?
Yeah, so that was interesting because the real start for it started from a couple girls that I was seeing in Los Angeles. And, they both in different ways said, you're really doing something that we, because they weren't in porno, they were just civilian girls. And they said, wow, you're really doing something that we've never experienced before. Can you, either write down some notes or put a book out for my future ex-husband so he can, read the material. And that was the first, like, sort of thought, like it was the first thing that sparked that inspiration in me, right? And it just lingered in my brain, where I thought to myself, wow, this could be a good idea. And it was around that time that I just thought, I thought casually about doing something, like it wasn't serious, but I thought, okay, well, let's just break this all down. So I started writing and writing and writing, and I had this whole collection of notes, and then I didn't do anything with it. And when I left America, I left with just one suitcase, right? Like I just took one suitcase, and I took some camera gear with me. So I basically, sold and left behind most of my belongings. And I remember seeing that pile of notes, and just something sparked in me. I said, well, I need to take that. And it's like a gut feeling. Like, I couldn't tell you why, right? I just had this feeling like, those notes need to come with me. So I packed them, and it was one of the few things that I had in my suitcase when I came over here. And and then I was here for a couple of years, and one day, because I wish I could remember exactly the day, but something just hit me, and it just said, "Okay, now it's time to write." And yeah, I called up one guy that I knew who was a published writer. I said, what's a good writing program? He told me. I downloaded it, and then after that, it became a job. And just every day, I just woke up and I wrote.
Were you doing the self-help coaching as well? How did you start that? Was that prior to moving? And how did you go about now, again, you got your belt, you know how to navigate business at this point. So how
Hmm.
did you say, okay, you know what, I want to start giving coaching lessons. I was a little curious about the sexual mastery program you do. I saw that you, Rachel Starr, and a couple other notable names have been doing that. So where did that start in correlation to the book?
So it's really interesting how like all these things have gone on in my life, right? On different levels. There was the, okay, I did the NLP school, and then there was, I did the ayahuasca stuff, and then just all the knowledge that I've gained from what I've been through. And, there was a good friend of mine. He used to always joke for about 10 years. He would always say to me, he goes, oh man, you'd make a great coach. I was like, no, I don't want to do coaching. Right. He's like, no, I can see it. Right. So he called it out 10 years ago. But for me, I was always doing it for my friends in many different areas, especially when it would be around sex. But it was just, they would always ask me questions, right? They'd be like, well, what about this? And I'd be like, boom, here's what you do, right? Or do XYZ. This is what you need. Go buy this. Like, so all my friends, whenever they had a question, I was the guy they all called. And so the process for me was first really writing the book, um, because in one of my ayahuasca journeys, the one I did out in Latvia, the download that I got was, well, just release the book, like get the information out there. And that was really my first thought was, okay, if I were to die tomorrow, at least I'm not dying with all this information in my brain, because again, I just don't think there would be a way to obtain the information any other way. Um, except through kind of the experiment that I went through. So that was the first part was, okay, I'm going to write the book. And then as that process unfolded, then a whole business strategy, even without me even thinking about it, started to unfold. So the coaching actually came after the book writing had already started. It wasn't before. So from a business standpoint, I actually did everything in reverse, but that's just how, life, God, however you want to call it, just wanted it to go. So it's been a real reverse strategy because most people have a full business going and then they later on write a book. For me, it was the book first.
Is the opposite. So dealing with clients, I'm curious, what was a very difficult client to deal with when trying to teach? Not so much like, oh, he's an asshole or he's that guy in, Hitch, but here's a guy like you're giving the knowledge and it's just not clicking. And how did you go about that? Like, hey man, let's try this, let's get that going.
It's interesting because I'm trying to think about situations and I haven't really had a client where we didn't figure out what was going on. Um, so I can't say that. Every client that I've worked with has definitely um, improved their situation where they were at. So yeah, for me, I haven't had any difficult clients. Not where I would say they were fundamentally difficult. I mean, if they've come to me, they're already open to learning.
Mm,
I think so. I think it's the business from that perspective is self-filtering, because I mean, sure, I can have people on social media that send me ridiculous messages or whatever, and but they're not open to learning, right? Because you look at anything with life, right? Like if you don't want to learn it, or you're very much against it, like I could tell you, I could give you, gems that cost thousands of dollars, and you're just blocked to it, or it's going to go in one ear and out the other,
mm.
right? It's like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
True. So let's actually move into the book. I
Sure.
read this in a day. I've only done that with two other books. One was a J.R. Tolkien one. I think it was The Hobbit. The other one was House of the Spirits. So I'm not a guy who can sit down and read. I've read so many autobiographies over there, and it's still got to be like, okay, at the best 50 pages at a time, and then I'm burned out. So this one really was engaging, and I really liked how, especially when you had the stopping points, let's step away from the sex and let's tell a story. I think you should really write an autobiography or just experiences, because that was really engaging. That really caught my attention. Like, oh, that really happened with Wendy. Okay, well, we'll see. So the biggest reoccurring theme I've come to in this book is men, even though they might be macho, have this moment where they just stop. Okay, they're pursuing a girl and then they get nervous, or there's anxiety, or there's this mental issue. I call it the Disney effect. I tell people all the time, I'm a victim of believing in that Disney bullshit. Like the girl's gonna come and just fall in love with the dude with a bus pass, or you're Prince Charming and it's all gonna work out. Forget everything. And the one thing that kept on popping in my mind was, from my personal experience, I've only had it happen once, where I was with a girl, but I legitimately had feelings. Like it took a long time to, realize like, hey, I think I actually love this girl. I think I really do like her.
Hmm.
And when the moment arose, my mind was so blocked off to the idea of even sex. Like getting her was just like, that is the Super Bowl win. That is my Steve Harvey, I know what I'm gonna do with my life moment. That I froze. And like the body knew what to do, but then I pulled back. I was like, I don't know. And I don't think it was anxiety, but I am curious, why do men have that last blockage before they go all in? Like there's some guys charismatic, and even myself, there's times where I'm just at the bar, I'm having fun. It's like, hey, here's an opportunity, go for it, and it's just smooth sailing. But a lot of your clients seem to be married men, or they seem to be men that generally care about the woman. Why do we have that last point of resistance?
Well, so you got a couple different things that go on, right? First off, and this is one of the interesting things when you think about, because I've seen it so many times too, right? Because I've known guys, in sort of that, I have some friends that are dating coaches, or they're in the pickup artist stuff or whatever, and I've met so many guys that can, legitimately they'll, talk to any girl, right? But there's any sort of seduction has those two elements to it, right? There is the, quote unquote, spitting your game or whatever, talking to the woman, saying, okay, let's, showing your persona, your personality, everything about you, blah blah blah, so she's attracted. And then there's the second part, which is all sexual, right? And so, a lot of that disconnect happens because people have confidence in themselves as far as their ability to talk, their ability to do this, to do that, to, do everything that is with the clothes on. But they lack the confidence when the clothes come off, because they haven't figured out um, how to figure out their body and how to control their body.
Hmm.
Because it is that body mastery, right? Like we can look at, um, for example, like I was studying for a while in Los Angeles. I was doing some Russian martial arts systema, and the instructor, I mean, the shit that he can do, because he's just practiced so many times, right? And you're just sitting there, or for you with jujitsu, like you'll see somebody that they've done something over and over, and you're just like, oh fuck, this guy, like he's a master of his body, right? Parts of his body he is a master of. And that same that same application comes down to your body. So you end up with some guys, it's like, man, they can talk the game, they can do that, but they get into the bedroom and they can't control their hard on. So then it becomes this, whimsical thing. Like, is it going to happen? Is it not? Right. Which starts that negative belief system already going, where you have that negative loop. Because I've always said to people, I said, the worst words that could ever come out of your mouth are two words: I hope. Because if you say, I hope I get hard today, you are presupposing already. You're already, that subconscious is saying, well, there's a good chance it's not going to happen. And then if you don't get hard right away, what have you just done? You've just confirmed your beliefs that started with. So now we start that negative loop where it's like, oh God, I hope I get hard. And then if you don't get hard right away, it's like, oh Jesus, see, it's happening again. Now more anxiety. Oh God, I'm sitting here, my dick's not hard. Like, what is she thinking of me? I mean, it just starts the whole thing. And then it's like, for you to get out of that becomes very difficult, right? And that's what happens with a lot of guys. So there's that piece where it's like, okay, you've got the anxiety piece, where you don't control, where you can't control getting hard, or it's up to the hand of God, so to speak, because one day it happens, the next time it doesn't. Then you've got the functional part of, okay, well, if you can get the erection, how do you control it, right? Because that becomes then an issue for a lot of guys, because there's no functional training that they've ever done in that arena. So, I remember this was hysterical. I was in Los Angeles and I was on a patio having a coffee, and this young kid walks by and he recognized me. He's like, "Oh man, Erik Everhard, can I have an autograph pictures with you?" I say, "Sure, man." And he starts asking me certain questions about being a porn actor. And so I tell him the top 5 things you need to be world famous, right? And I get to number 2, which is, you need to be able to produce a cum shot on command, not before, and ideally within a minute and a half of being asked, you know. And he just, mouth open, just stares at me. He's like, "What? You guys don't just like come whenever you want?" I said, "No, bro, I'm owned. I am owned." Like this, like in his mind, it's like, "Oh, you feel it, you just let it go." I'm like, "No, no, no, no." And that's where the mastery comes in, because, I mean, I'll be honest, I've had lots of scenes where, man, I'll be honest, 30 seconds in, ready to go. And I have to look myself in the eye and say, "Well, we got another 59 minutes and 30 seconds to go now, don't we? Better get this shit together." Right? And that's what you do. So I mean, I've definitely, the reason I came up with my whole protocol is because it's what I used all the time to get me through what I was doing. Because when you're there and now money is on the line, and you're on set, and maybe there's, especially back in the day, you got 30 people, and their job, their livelihood, their money, everything all comes back to me being able to do my job.
And I want to put out for people that if you want to make it in the porn area, he has a 5 criteria, and they are able to get hard on command, which you also touched on the book. That's a mental and a physical thing. There's 2 different
Mhm.
types of erections, which I thought was
Yep.
really interesting. The cunt shot within a minute. Again, not gonna say anything. It's weird because you'll say stories of, like, especially when you were mentioning the 4 vaginas and how it's not the outside, it's the inside, and they affect
Mhm.
every man differently. I think that was the biggest eye opener for me. It's like, okay, so there's a difference other than hearing like, oh, she's tight or she's loose. You never really heard of the velvet, or your explanation of velvet, where the girl's soft, or the rib, kind of like, how certain condom manufacturers make them to try and
Yeah.
make that effect. Back to the list. You don't need to be big. You need to be average, which I would, somewhere around 5, I guess 6. Again, little lost. Decently good looking. You always say Brad Pitt. You don't have to be him. And then the last thing is extracting something from a woman that wouldn't have been extracting if you weren't there. I found that interesting in the aspect of most of the people I've seen doing reviews for your book or commenting on social media are husbands. These are guys that are, not just, oh, we've been married a year, been married, we're going on 5 years, decades, and etc. And they're still having these problems of getting their woman off. Why are we struggling to communicate in sex? Why is there still kind of like the stigma behind porn? Overseas, porn stars are basically celebrities. There's no difference. Okay. Hey, what's up? You're no different than the movie star that was shooting people up like Arnold Schwarzenegger. No, you're top dog. But here, sex is, even though it's rampant, everybody does it, everybody talks about it, media wise or personally, when it comes to our significant other, we're reversed. We have fragile egos. Why is that? Why is it so hard for us to, at least as men, you know, go to the woman and just, animalistically, caveman like, just take it out of her and like, hey, let's explore this.
There's a lot of different things. So let's kind of unpack them as we go here. One of the things that I've noticed, it really comes back to that lack of education, right? It's like full stop, and I talk about it in the book. I mean, it's literally like, you're hopped up on testosterone. You are given by God, you've been given your dick. So it's like, You can do whatever you want. Like no training required, no training wheels, no lessons. It's like giving an 8-year-old the keys to a semi truck and saying, "Hey, man, just bring it back for dinner." Right? Um, so you've been given all the tools with no training, and you just, like I said, put all that testosterone in you, where it's like every part of your body wants to go do something with a woman, right? Like you have to hold that back, because especially when you're on a lot of testosterone, you're growing up in your youth. I mean, it's like, we've all gone through it, right? You're 16, 17, 18-year-old. I mean, Jesus, you want to run at every girl, right? So there's no training. And so you got that piece where guys don't know what it would take to get the girl off. Then you have the difference in communication between men and women. And that's a huge one too, I've noticed, because we both talk and think differently, really different. You think about guys, we are very logical, deductive decision makers. It's like if you look at the polarities, right? Masculine polarity, feminine polarity, and you look at how men will talk about problems and how women will talk about problems, right? So the way a woman would describe how she wants you to get her off is going to be speaking to you in Korean from a man's perspective, right? Because I've had women they've read my book. Like I've had a lot of women that have read my book and they said, "Oh, that's so right. Oh, yeah, that's exactly how it works." I'm like, "How come you never told some man that way then?" Right? Like, why wouldn't you just say that? And they're like, I never really thought of that, right? So there's a piece where, you know, you can you can translate it in sort of man speak to a guy, so he at least understands from that male lens of understanding. Okay, here's what I got to do, right? So I think those are two of the big issues that people are struggling with. And then there's also, you know, there's the piece of, as guys, we don't like to go to others for help, right? We always want to try and figure stuff out ourselves. And that becomes problematic when you just don't have the information, right? Like, and I think it's very much the way that you start to think through life, because I think especially if you're like an entrepreneur type, as you go through life, you understand other people know more information than you. Like I have a coach for fitness. I have a business and marketing coach. I've had tons of different coaches through my life, because guess what? I don't know. I don't have the information. And I could sit here and say, yeah, let me just figure it out on my own. That could take forever if I even figure it out, right? Or I can find somebody that knows what they're talking about and they can shortcut it for me and they are professional in what they do.
It's a weird concept to me because even if, we didn't go all the way or hit the bases or etc., the women I've dealt with have been very honest and forward. It wasn't a question, "Hey, what, please don't bite the neck. It's not okay," or this or that. So, to see people struggling with that intimacy and talking, I'm like, well, geez, I haven't been in that many relationships. I think I've had two girlfriends. And I've been fortunate to have dealt with women that are, straightforward. Do this, don't do that. Learn how to choke better. I'm like, whoa, 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 chill. I didn't even think I, gripped you. So one thing that was interesting was your story with the Wendy. And I keep on thinking about it over and over again. It sounds like a great, you want to talk about a great effing story. My man, wonderful. That, but in the hindsight of that, the basic story was you were going to meet up with a friend. You guys were going to casually have sex, and you met this other girl. She was in town for the
Mhm.
gun show. I think it was AVN. You were there with your buddy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
She
guys
was
had
there for the
a session.
SHOT Show, and I was there for AVN.
You guys were chopping it up. You're doing great, and you ended up taking her back to the hotel room, and you got busted. I'm more
Mhm.
I'm more in awe of how she found you and you got busted. But in that moment, it just clicked. Like, just take her and make out with her.
Yeah.
I was I was trying to decipher the lesson you learned from that. For me, just sitting back, it doesn't matter who I am. I'm sitting there, like, the lesson is you a lucky son of a gun, man. Like, damn. But you expressing remorse through sexuality is what I got
Hmm.
from that. So I was wondering if you
That
could
was totally it.
dive more into that. Help me comprehend that, how she was like, okay, that's fine. Because I'm not trying to look at it from a standpoint like, oh, you caught me cheating. Like, no, you guys were just, you were colleagues, you were having sex as
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
But it's hard to separate the emotional from the physical, and especially what you mentioned in the book, like with threesomes, you guys got to be on the same page. If she's not by, it's not going to work. If you're not giving your girlfriend the attention, the emotional support, you're going to have a hell of a time. So please walk me through that experience.
Yeah. So it was really interesting because, so much of it, as I wrote in the book, I mean, none of it was spoken. It was all feeling. It was like really, really being empathetic with the person. Like I could tell because it was understood between us. Like we were supposed to meet up, right? And I didn't do it. I forgot, and then of course, I met this girl, and like that, my whole focus was on this girl, right? And the girl that I was supposed to be with that night, she was not who I thought was knocking on the door. I thought it was hotel security because we're making all this noise, right? I did not think so. It was like, and there was that look on my face, like I was totally busted. She looked at me. She was like, "Mm-hmm," right? And and yeah, it was really this total remorseful way of saying I'm sorry. And that's what I mean. Like right then, it was instinctively like I knew, okay, she needs to come into this interaction and she needs to be the primary person in the interaction. And like I've talked about that with threesomes, right? Because there was actually one client I was working with who, when I explained to him about the hierarchies, he had the aha moment because he had a threesome that went horrifically wrong. And as soon as he saw that, he goes, "That's why." I'm like, "Oh yeah, you cannot pay more attention to the new girl than your primary. There is an unspoken hierarchy, and it will bite you in the ass really fast." So I even knew right then. I said, "Okay, there's the remorse piece where you know through my actions, I'm showing how sore I am, because now all the attention is on her." And then from that point, when I brought her into the interaction, it was that unspoken hierarchy. It's like, okay, Wendy is number two, you are number one, and now it's you and me that are a team that are having fun with her.
So what physical cues do women give off? Say you're a shy guy. Let's take me for example. If I'm at a club shooting the breeze at a bar, I don't even need alcohol. I'll talk to you. I'm very charismatic in that way. I'll talk to anybody. I'll walk up to anybody. I've been burned more times trying to ask a girl out than I can remember. I got stories. So that's not a big deal. But when it comes to a girl I do like, all of a sudden, back to the Disney effect, I'm reserved, I'm quiet, and it's difficult to find the nonverbal cues. And I'm not just talking the winks, the smiles, but what would be some examples of she did that with her leg? We're talking just visually looking. There's no way you're actually feeling her or touching, which is, you know, something you also did a very good job describing in the book, trying to feel like, okay, what is the clitoris doing? Okay,
Hmm.
how is she positioned? So what are some nonverbal cues we can see as guys?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest ones that I've noticed actually, um, because obviously there are professional dating coaches that it's all about what body language is the person doing. And as far as that bar style pickup, I would consider other people to be way more professional than me for that. What I will say though that I really did learn, and and it was taught to me by one actress, was the fact that women, like, they let you know by their willingness to stay engaged in the game with you. I think that's one of the top things. And I'll tell you a quick story because this wasn't in the book, but it was definitely one of the greatest teachings I got in this sexual journey. And I was in Los Angeles at the time. I worked with this beautiful Hungarian girl for a scene. She was awesome. We got along great. I took her number. I said, hey, let's, you're in town. Let's go for drinks or whatever sometime. She's like, sure. Take her number. We go out, have some drinks. Went to, well, I can't remember the name of the bar, but then I say, hey, you want to come back to my place? Sure. Right. So she comes back. I'm thinking like, remember in my mind, I'm thinking like, hey, done deal, right? Done deal. Right. Because I mean, come on. I mean, we've already had sex before. Now we're going on the date, right? Like this is easy. No problem. And it was not. This woman taught me more about women in that 5 hours that I've never forgotten. So we go back, start making out, and I start pushing forward, right? And it's like, I get the hand slap, or not the hand slap, it's just the no, not doing this. And I'm like, and man, I was like thrown off, right? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, come on, right? Like this is on. So I'm like, huh. And something in me said, because I started looking at her, right? And this is the problem with today's society. And this is going to be controversial, but I do talk about this a lot. Consent, most consent is covert. It is not overt. And in today's Me Too society, that's not, what is politically correct to say, but typically a lot of like overt consent turns people off, right? If you were to look at all the women, there's going to be 10% that are like, okay, cool. He asked me first if he wants to kiss me. 90% of them are going to be turned off because they're going to be like, man, if you're a man, you would have just tried to kiss me. So there's this between what women say they want and then what they actually want and society. So this was my situation when I'm with this girl, and because she's flirtatious, she's happy. So also it becomes this calibration piece where you're like, okay, well, what am I looking at here, right? And here's the main thing that I took away from it too. And we like to portray that women are stupid. They are not. They are geniuses. I actually worked with one client, and he told me his story where he took a girl back to his house. Mind you, this guy that I'm coaching is 6'5" tall black guy. And the girl he went back with, I think, was like 5'3", right? At 3 a.m, she's going back to his apartment. 3 a.m, after the bar, going back. 6'5" tall black dude, right? And they go into bed. He doesn't make a move because he's like kind of waiting for her maybe to, right? Because he's afraid of, kind of what, me too, should I, blah, blah, blah. Next morning, what is that girl? Furious. Never talk to him again. How dare you? I came over to your house. Like they're not stupid. No woman is coming at 3 a.m. to your house when you are double her size and double her weight without at least the idea that she might be entertaining sleeping with you. Mm-hmm. Because if she's like, wow, this guy is double my size. He could beat me up. He could rape me. She's like, not fucking going to your house, buddy. Not at all. So there's the part of that you kind of have to understand what's going on in the situation. So this day with this girl, I try something and it gets shut down, but she's still sitting there on my couch. She's not like, I'm going home. No, she's smiling. She's just like, yeah, it's kind of like nothing happened. I was like, huh. So I think, okay, well, I'm going to try again, right? So I try again. Now it's okay, right? I'm like, So then, of course, I try and escalate a little further. We go a little bit further. Oh, no. Shuts that down, right? I'm like, fuck me. Like I'm getting the biggest lesson of all time right here because she's still there, still smiling, everything. It was this game. And then once I realized what it was, and I thought, oh my God, it was like every light bulb just went off in my brain, where it's like, look, they will let you know, when they don't want you to give them attention. They are going to slap you. They're leaving the house. So you have to fundamentally look at the behavior. There's a famous thing we talk about in NLP, which is so true, which is behavior is your highest form of information. And that is very true, because people can talk whatever, but their behavior is showing what's going on in their subconscious mind. So you have a woman that's like, oh, yeah, no, I'm not interested, blah, blah, blah. And she's just smiling and sitting on the couch. And she's like, yeah. And then, so long story short, I went through that process with her. We played that game for I think it was like 4 hours. It was the longest, most drawn out thing you've ever experienced. And then what the funny thing is, then finally we're naked and then we're fucking like rabbits for like hours, right? But I am so grateful to that woman because she just taught me so much in that 4 hours, just about, what is going on, because man, sex is not black and white. It's so many layers of gray, and there are so many layers of gray in there. And that's the thing, um, even with consent, well, it's a moment to moment thing, right? You can't even say that it's just black and white. It's very moment to moment. Well, hey, now my hand over here, that's cool. Oh, I move my hand here. No, that's not cool. Okay. And then 15 minutes later, oh, okay, my hand being there. Well, now that's cool. But now this new other thing, that's not cool. And so you really have to calibrate. And that's why I tell people all the time, man, you have to be feeling the moment. Like, you have to be present. What is going on? Because I think all the crap that happens with men is they're not paying attention. Like, they're not calibrating what's going on. They're not calibrating what is the girl feeling. And that's where you get this disconnect between the sexes. I know that was long-winded, but I just had to share that.
No, that was a great story. But it also made me think, who hasn't had a moment like that? Oh my gosh. I was on the couch again, was with a friend. It was pretty much already said we're friends. Of course, I want to be with her, but whatever. And I was just in this one position the whole time like this. And for whatever reason, I did the old move. I had to stretch. It didn't even calculate in my mind. By the time I got here, I was like, oh shit. She's like right here. And I just put it back. And I remember she got up, she went and changed, and then went to the other side of the couch. I was like, oh, fucking A, fuck me. That's the one time. But it also made me think, I could see why we're missing cues now, especially, and it would be more of a society thing. If it's a one-on-one with somebody like at the club or somebody at a house, I get it. But now with, like you said, the Me Too movement, men of power abusing women that, work under them, etc., I could see why at least guys growing up now have a lot more to think about than what we did in our generation. Because I grew up like, hey man, if you want a girl, all out, you crash and burn, keep moving. But and then the other one, which I don't really subscribe to, I'm more of a like, no, I'm moving on. I'm good. I can do better. But a lot of guys were like, nah, man, you got to be persistent, hit her up over and over and over again. There's a lot of factors that I really didn't consider why men would struggle with it now. It,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like the story with Wendy and you hooking up with her, you being the porn star actually helped you. And one of the other questions my friend had, that, again, the sexologist, was, what are the difficulties you run into, excluding religious fanatics and people, saying like, oh, you're going to hell, etc. I'm a firm believer, whatever happens is between you and God. As long as you don't hurt people, you're golden. So what are the difficulties you've had being in the porn industry aside from the positives? Like, I remember Kieran Lee say he's had times where he went to apply for a loan for a house and he was rejected just because of his particular career. So what are some of the difficulties you've dealt with throughout your life?
When I think about difficulties, I mean, most of the difficulties I think are just the way people will initially perceive you. Um, now I do a lot of different, lectures and seminars and different things on Clubhouse, which has been a real game changer for me because, again, for me, it's the power of my voice. Like, you have to fundamentally understand how I think, how I come across the things that I do. Because if you just see that 30-minute clip of me in a sex scene, well, that's not giving you the full version of who I am, right? That's giving you a scripted version that I am portraying on screen. So there is definitely this piece about um, people's perceptions, and there are stereotypes, and I get it. That's another thing why I very much do understand the stereotypes, and I don't run from those, because let's face it, in life, the reason stereotypes exist is because there are elements of truth to them usually, right? And so then it's like you got to parse out, well, what is true and what makes this person not fall into the quote unquote the stereotype. So, for me, I would say it's been, yeah, perception. Um, that's probably the main one, right? And but I've used that as a filtering mechanism as well. So, and I do find it to be very effective, because often when I meet people, I'm very quick to tell them what I do because I want that self filtering mechanism in my life, right? Because when I've met people at a business function, when I tell them what I do, they are not ready for it. They're thinking, man, maybe he's an accountant, maybe he's a lawyer, maybe he's a fitness trainer. They're thinking anything else than a professional porn star. So on their face, you get this like 0.5 second read that is just very authentic. And so you get to see, are they like freaked out or are they interested? And you do kind of get to see it on their face really quick. So you do get a sense of who do you want in your life, who has issues that are much deeper, where they probably are never going to be someone that ultimately gets along with you. So I would think that's kind of what I've noticed out there, um, when I think about how the business has affected me personally in my life.
Just remember, I don't know if it was on Kimmel or if it's just YouTube, but you're reading mean tweets. People were, talking about porn stars, and somebody said something really cruel about you, and you're like, "Well, fuck you, man. I get the bang chicks. What are you doing?"
The funny thing about that is again, that's not even my personality, because that was for browsers, right? And they scripted that. So it's like, here's what we want you to say.
Really? Oh, that's
Oh yeah, that was totally scripted.
oh man, they got us thinking that people are actually out here saying these things. Okay.
Maybe somebody said that. I have no idea. My response, though, was not my response. That was a scripted response. Here's what the tweet's going to say, and here's what you are going to repeat for the camera. So, yeah, I can't remember what they had me say. I think it was something about, um, yeah, because it wasn't a reference to like Russian something or other. I can't remember. But yeah, basically they said, oh, yeah, yeah, tell them to fuck off.
So
Okay.
being the introvert you are you more inclined to run to the fight, or you just like say somebody said that to you, would you just been reserved like okay, or like all right, come on, man, let's go? How do you feel like you?
Yeah, no, I'd be way more reserved. I'm not. Yeah, I mean, for me to get super angry. I mean, I definitely have a temper, but it wouldn't be over something like that. Yeah, I'd just be like, yeah, whatever.
Keep it pushing. I think the two biggest things in this book, not that I would take away, but maybe your fan base, maybe my fan base would be the act of oral sex on a woman, or even us, and the positions. You had a statement where people cheat because they think the grass is greener on the other side. They're expecting this super uber better sex, or they're wanting through that. Did you feel it was very important to convey how to perform oral sex first, and that's why it was at the beginning of the book? Or did it just fall into place like that's how you layer it? You get your floor play, and then the oral, and then the doggy, and then everything else kind of came after.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a staple. Now I get it. There's some people that aren't into it, and I'll tell those guys, like, look, if it's something you can't get behind, then it's probably not best for you to do, right? Because the last thing you want to be doing is doing something for somebody that you don't enjoy. Because I've known guys where they have suffered from erectile problems because they go to do something that actually fundamentally turns them off. Like I worked with one guy who, he was making out with a girl he had met, like hard in his pants, ready to go for sex. And, they do the thing, and he felt obligated, right? That word, obligated, to go down on her. He did, lost his erection, never got it back. And, if you're a guy who you're not into it, and it's going to ultimately mess with your erection, then I would say don't do it. Find another way to pleasure her, because you need to stay in the game, right? Like as the act, and I talk about this in the book, the act of sex is all up to you. That burden of performance rests upon you as a man, and you only. So if the sex is going to happen, you have to figure your shit out. And if that means avoiding something that is going to prevent you from getting an erection, then you need to avoid it, right? And so, and then, I mean, that's a much deeper conversation as to finding then the woman that's going to match with you.
Having all this knowledge, I'm curious, like, again, you mentioned big names like Diana Lauren, or repeated other names. Who is someone that either you're really still good friends with in the porn industry, guy or girl, producer, doesn't matter, or, just anyone that took you under the ring or you felt you've learned the most from, not just in sex, but also in business, so just all around. This is the person that really, like, hey, you know what? I owe them a lot, like I would Jeff, in mentoring me into becoming who I am.
Yeah, I mean, by far the person that mentored me the most was Vince Foyer.
Vince
By
Ford.
far. Yeah, 100%. When I started, um, and he was I love him, but he was a tough son of a bitch. I will say that. I mean, he was tough on guys. He was really tough, but he was the first producer. At the my very because I talk about it in the book, the very first gangbang. He came up to me at the end of that. He says, "What are you doing tomorrow?" I said, "Nothing." He's like, "You're working," and then he really took me under his wing from from very much a porno perspective. So there are two different pieces, right? Because there's the part where you are learning how to be a porno actor, and within that, if you're open to it and you're paying attention, you are learning a ton about sex. But you could still go in and just learn the porno stuff and not learn to feel, to experience, to see all these nuanced things that are going on within sex. So that's, it's like you've been given this opportunity for knowledge, but you have to sit there and still learn.
Because I was sitting here reading the book, I was like, when they do the AVN awards, when they do all these awards for like best scenes, best this, best that, um, is that what they're looking for? The particular things you put in this? Because I know, again, it's theater of the mind. So I feel like it would be very much different. But I wanted to ask, like, okay, is there a little bit of this used in the actual filming process, or it's all just uncomfortable moves? Because you got stories where you're like, your back is
Yeah.
riddled with shells, and you're freezing outside, and you had to produce an erection to get it done. So
Yeah, no, I mean the when you're in the porno world, they're just worried about getting their shot. Like it's all whatever the visual um crazy thing of the moment is, right? But from that perspective, definitely the best people I've ever worked for have been former actors by far. Because, and not to go off topic, but there is a strange sort of egotistical thing that I've seen that happens sometimes with producers or directors that have never been actors. There's either a disconnect or there's an egotistical problem. The egotistical problem becomes the fact that they are not having sex with the woman. They are subconsciously angry that it's not them. So they want to make your life hell, which then they will. That's the egotistical part. And then the other part is just simply not understanding, because they've never done what I have to do. And, when you're talking about high level sexual acrobatics, let's call it what it is, there is a lot of things that go into it that most people don't think about. So, for example, because this is something that happens all the time, some producer will say, okay, we want to do this DP position, and they'll give you like this little skinny desk, right? And they're like, yeah, we're going to do it on here. And I'm like, what part of you thinks that this is possible? Because either they don't care or they don't know. But any actor can easily look at an apparatus and say, that's not going to work. Like, because I know where the girl has to go. I know where the knees have to go. I know how the body has to be cheated open for you to be able to see this on the camera. I know all these things, and I can just look at an apparatus and say, that works or it doesn't. And it takes me 2 seconds. And I've been there before with actors on set. A producer will say, okay, we want to do this scene here. And I'm just shaking my head. And I look at the fellow actor, he's shaking his head because we both know this is not going to happen. And so then you spend the next half hour where the producer wants it to happen. And we've told him at the beginning, it's not going to happen. Right. And then the girl's in there, she's miserable. And it's just the whole thing goes miserable. And it's based on that fact that they do not understand what it takes to be an actor, right? Because there's a lot that goes into it on so many levels.
One of your intermissions in the book was a gangbang, and I don't think it was the Philadelphia one. Fun fact, everyone, you know how much I love Philadelphia. His first scene in the United States was in Philadelphia, so let's chop it up
Philadelphia,
there. Selling
Philadelphia.
and hustling videos, trying to get out there. So when you did the scene, I don't know if excuse my memory. I don't know if it was the one where, everybody was outside freezing to death and you guys had to, struggle, but I do remember you saying you went all in. It was, you anchoring, which everyone says is the hardest
Yeah,
position,
that was the gangbang in Los Angeles. That was my first day in LA.
and it was freezing outside. And if you guys aren't familiar with the terminology, anchoring is the person on the bottom, depending on whatever the position is for double penetration. And you were just doing any and everything. And the quote that stuck with me, I want to look it up, but I might not be able to find it easily. But basically, you don't know. Oh, here it is. You never realize what you're doing in that moment. You're just doing it only later to realize, the impact you've had. That's paraphrasing.
Hmm.
And something like that, especially the first scene you walk in, first time you go to a porn studio, like, hey, have sex with a girl. And now you're doing a DP, and it seems like you were really exposed to really, I don't want to say graphic, crazy sex. Just here you go, into the fire, and then here's a little extra propane for it. And the biggest thing you always go back to is the mental fortitude. Would you say that that's where you learned to control your mind, having experiences like that? And then I got one more question for you.
Yeah, I think it's two-part, right? So I think part of my ability to compartmentalize stuff has always been there. And then the abilities definitely increased as I went through doing porno because I had to learn also quickly to block out all sorts of things. Like I remember early on in my career, um, I could block out all the stuff going on, but I had real trouble blocking out my ears. So, I could block out, okay, all these people are around, blah, blah. I'm like, I got that, but they're still talking. And I'm like, because, like you're trying to go for the cum shot and then, it's like, oh, these people are all talking and it's distracting. It's like, okay, like I have to figure out how to block this out of my mind, right? Or block it out or increase my level of focus on what I'm doing so that the voices become like, Charlie Brown, wah, 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 and you're not hearing what they are saying. So that was something that I then really perfected because at the beginning of my career, that part was difficult, was the voices because, people are always talking, it's not like you're going silent on set. And it could sort of throw you off too. So you on every stage of my journey through an actor, it was okay, how do I shift my mindset so that either I can block out these things or that these things no longer concern me? Because, at the end of the day, that's what you're trying to get through because, when you can block it all out, that's when you have that, freedom. Right? Like it's when you're truly free. There's no thoughts, there's no craziness going on. You're just in the experience. And the more you can stay in the experience of sex, I mean, that's what sex is. Sex is a physical being connection, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Event, right? Like, yeah, we can throw, there's mental aspects and there's emotional aspects and there's spiritual aspects, but when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, you know, it is a physical act. And for you to be present with that physical act, like really present, you can't be thinking about stuff. Because if you're thinking about stuff, now you're not present to the physical act.
With your whole life, every event you've done, you've lived something that is quite remarkable. What do you believe is the best piece of advice that has been given to you that really comes to mind? What is something that somebody said that just really opened up your eyes, or something really minor that just always stuck with you? I've had people say, don't buy a tour bus, rent one, and then, one of the best ones was like, is the fucking you're giving worth the fucking you're getting? Or my favorite one, just live. Like, what is something that somebody's told you that has become sort of a life motto that just has stuck with you?
Hmm. You know, I don't know why, but this always comes up for me. It was a saying from actually one of my business partners, and it was death, jail, or success. And I don't know why that always comes up to me, but it always does. You know, it's like, you know, and it's that perseverance aspect to it, right? Like, you know, I've always been really good at no matter what happens, because we all get emotional and, you know, something doesn't work out and, you know, we all do it, right? It's very much that, you know, quote unquote Rocky Balboa-esque, like, you know, well, after you get hit, can you get back up? And how fast can you do it? You know, how fast can you say, okay, well, hey, that sucked, and let's get back at it, because death, jail, or success, right? Like, if I want success, you got to get back up, right? So that was definitely one of the big pieces, and a big shift for me, actually, I would say, in my life, was when I realized that nobody cares. And let me explain that. It's like, you know, from the man's perspective, and you know, you hear Jordan Peterson talk about this a lot. And I really do like a lot of the stuff that he brings from this perspective. Like, you know, ultimately, you have to take care of you, right? So it shifts you away from the victim mentality that I find a lot of people get sucked into, like, oh, this person is the reason I'm here, this person is the reason I'm there, this is why this didn't work out, because of them. And it shifts it into the onus of the responsibility is on you, right? And that's empowering. Like, it's so empowering to know, like, hey, you know, if I want my life to be better, I got to do it. Okay. Well, that's awesome. That's in my control, because I can't control the other stuff, but I can control that I, you know, show up to do the best job I can. I can control that I don't go partying, do a bunch of drugs, do a bunch of crazy stuff. I can control my ability to speak to others. I can control my ability to network. I can control my spending. I can control all these things. So if I keep focusing on, okay, it's all up to me and I have to make it happen, that's a real place of empowerment, because saying, like, okay, all these people are preventing me, that's just playing the victim. And so I think that really ties into all of it. And that's really what I got, I'd say, the last 10 years, and really shifted my mindset, because I definitely had very much more of that victim mentality, like, oh, you know, this hasn't worked out, and you know, if only so and so did this, and it's like, oh man, that this doesn't serve you. It really doesn't.
Okay. Well, good sir, thank you for your time. So grateful for it. And ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to go to Amazon and pick up Unleash Your Sexual Superpowers, Pornstar's Guide to Sexual Mastery by Erik Everhard. You can also go to sexualsuperpowers.com and erikeverhard.com. Good sir, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you so much for entering the dojo.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Loved it.
Hey, man, God bless. And for everyone else watching, ninja out.